Hey, Inner Circle members, Charles Lewis here. Welcome to this exciting event that we are going to be chatting with you about and giving you great information on two things, really. They kind of coexist with each other: client acquisition and loyalty and retention. And joining me today, of course, is my son and business partner, Todd Lewis. Hi, Todd.
Hello, members. Welcome. If you're watching live, welcome live. If you're not watching live, why are you not here? Where are you? We're waiting to start. What
What are you doing?
are
Yeah.
you doing? If you're not watching live, we're glad that you are watching the recording of this on the online vault because this is for our members only. Shirley types in live and says, sounds great. Thank you for that, Shirley. Good to have you here as always. Welcome to our other members that are joining us live. And for those of you who are live, just a reminder, you can ask questions. That is one of the most valuable parts of these live programs. I can't encourage you enough to ask questions, preferably about the subject we're talking about, but even if it's not, as long as it's photography or photography business related, ask your question. Now is a great time for that because I can pretty much promise that other members will want to hear your question and the answer to it as well. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, and also joining us today from the great state of Maine is Mr. Thomas Morelli. Hi, Tom.
Hello, gentlemen. Hello, Chuck. Hello, Todd. I thought today's webinar was what wine pairs with 7 pounds of leftover Easter candy. That must be next week. I'm trying to make a casserole out of these bunny ears that people bit off and left. But anyway, it's great to be here. It's a great time of year. Looking forward to today's program because, boy, this can keep you busy the rest of the year.
It sure can and sure will. And Bob typed in and said, I'm here live, which is great because it's better than being here dead because, boy,
Yep.
you know, it seems like you'd have better things to do, like, I don't know, digging yourself out from under the ground. I don't know whatever it is. So good to have you here, Bob. And good to have the rest of you here as well. And today, as my dad mentioned, we are talking about client acquisition and loyalty and retention. Now, we're going to come at these from kind of a bit of a different angle, a little bit from, you know, what we've done in the past. We'll be able to call your attention to some things on the online vault that you can go to for more information in some of these areas. But we get asked questions about this all the time. And both of these, the reason we're covering both of these things today at the same time is because a lot of the actions that we will take for client acquisition are also things that are going to impact the loyalty of that client, the retention of that client, the return business of that client, and even their desire and actively going out there and referring us to other people. So those two things go very hand in hand because you can't have studied with us for any period of time without understanding that this is all about having a system. And what makes a system work is when all the pieces of that system come together, they are worth so much more as a whole than they are with their individual parts. And that means that one piece of the system can kind of fall apart or not work as well or not be as effective if you skip or don't do one of the other parts of the system correctly. So we have to start with the client acquisition stuff and what we do very early on in our process through our marketing, through the telephone contacts, through the design consultation, all that stuff, before we even ever set them in front of our camera in order to also get the benefit of the loyalty and retention that we'll get from them as well. So before we dive in here, just gentlemen, I want to give each of you just a very quick moment, 30 to 60 seconds or so to say why you feel this subject is so important for us to be covering with our members. And Tom, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, as I sit here in my portrait studio and I look around at some of the samples, I have a sample portrait that is probably 30, 35 years old that I dug out of the archives for today just to remind me or mention this. And it's a very prominent physician and his wife with their young family in their beautiful home almost 40 years ago. It's when I learned from Chuck, go on location, go on location. Great big family. From that one family, I've received 2 weddings, other family groups, and tons of babies over the years. And I'm talking well into the 6 figures has been invested with me by this one family because of that one first contact. We're going to talk about that today. So building lifelong relationships is just crucial to this repeat business. So you're always not trying to find new people, although we do that as well. You build a book of business, you build VIPs, and it just works out great. I have so many families in that same thing. With this portrait, if I could show it to you, I did a great job, don't you think? Look at it, it's beautiful. How did I get the dogs to sit there? It was great, but it is very important, and today is all about that.
Well, and Tom, we are seeing 2 images on their screen right now, so.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Dad?
Yeah, the thing that, everybody has heard, you only get one chance at a first impression. Well, this is especially true in a people-oriented business like photography. And what a lot of people forget is your first impression is your marketing. Yes, your reputation, but you cannot build a business just on reputation. There's things we can do, and actually we're going to talk about a couple of them that can improve your reputation and people recommending you and talking about you. But frankly, the first impression that people get of you is through your marketing. So your marketing directly connects with loyalty and retention, because if that first impression is not good, if you whatever it is, we'll talk about it in a minute, but whatever it is, then you end up not ending up with that client, and then you don't get any referrals. And then of course, how you treat them during the entire process determines how much they rant and rave about you. And yes, you can bring in business that way by referrals for sure, but it's not enough to build a really successful photographic business all by itself. So we got to be real careful with our marketing to build the right first impression so that people will indeed contact us.
And today we're not talking about just marketing. That's just good. That's the front line. That's the first step in the system.
Yep.
And that's why I kind of want to talk about what we mean by client experience, because client acquisition, loyalty, and retention, all of that all falls under the umbrella of the entire client experience, which begins with your marketing, goes through every meeting, conversation, telephone call, email, everything that they have with you, goes into the photographic session itself, through the sales presentation, and all the way through what happens after they've had the images delivered to them. The system doesn't stop there. And one of the key points that I want to make here is to be sure that you stop thinking like a business when it comes to the client experience, with the exception of being professional, with the exception of doing everything to the best of your ability, with the exception of standing behind what you do 100%. I want you to stop thinking like a business in other ways. Instead, you should be thought of by your clients as a friend or a member of the family. That's the kind of rapport you want to build, because that's what leads to great sales, great thrilled clients, wonderful expressions in the portraits themselves. I mean, that ability to do that creates a better product, and then also will carry through to everything that happens after they have picked up or you've delivered their finished portraits. This is an ongoing process during and after the whole system, before and after the photographic session itself. Okay, you're going to have ongoing contact through this whole process. And you also want to make the client experience memorable and fun. Make it a fun experience that they will naturally want to talk about and share with others, either through social media, when you do start maybe sharing a couple of their images on your page, and then you tag them on it, and then they want to share, because not only are they proud of the images and love the images to death, but they also loved the experience, the client experience. So don't just think of the end product, the final image, as what you are selling. You are selling that, as well as selling yourself and selling the experience itself. Now, what do we mean by client loyalty and retention? I suppose we should talk about that first. And the first key point here, I think, to make is the concept of having a client for life. Now, I can't drill this into our members enough. Okay, those of you on here live, type in and let me know how important you feel this key point is. Type it into the questions box if you think it's on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 not very important, 10 very important. What number would you assign thinking of your clients as a client for life. Type those in for me as we go on here. And if you're not on here live, think about it. All right, Shirley typed in and said 1 million. I mean, she went way, and you know what? I don't think you're wrong there, Shirley. We can't stress enough how important this is, because most photographers think of clients as a one and done. They mistakenly think, okay, all I've got to do is I've got to get as many clients in the door as I can and photograph as many as I can. Bob just typed in and said 10 plus. It's a 10 plus. Absolutely. It is top of the list, because it is so much more challenging to get a new client than it is to work with a client with whom you've worked before. So we always talk about what's the lifetime value of a client. Tom, could you talk for a moment here about how crucial and integral this particular phrase has been in your photography business, and why?
Yeah, well, we have a photographic example right here. I started out working with high school seniors, of course, many years ago, and babies. And when we do this right, that will start the process of making clients want to naturally work with you because they like you. As a matter of fact, part of my success, I felt, was when people started calling and asking my receptionist, I want Tom to do my portraits, not Morelli Studio or Thomas Morelli Portraits, the business end of it, but me personally. And that way they thought of me indeed as a family friend more than a business they worked with. So this young lady was a high school senior. Then she got engaged. Then they had a wedding. Then she had maternity portraits. They've had 4 children since then go through our baby plan, the first boy there on the little plane. And we do a portrait every year or so as the family grows and changes. This is an example of a lifetime client over, I don't know if it's quite 30 years, somewhere in there. And again, in a 6-figure investment, it doesn't take too many of those families. We're not talking about doing 25 of these a week. It doesn't take that many to build your business up. And they, of course, refer people, which we'll be talking about. But when they call, this woman's name is Erica. She doesn't call and go, I'd like Thomas Morelli photography. She's like, hey, is Tom there? Oh, I want to set up a time to come talk to him. It's time for another family. And of course, they're on our VIP list as well.
Yeah, and make no mistake, it's not an accident that this happens. It's because, and all of you who have been studying with us for a long time, and you've heard Tom as part of our online vault and the Inner Circle program here for many years now, there's a reason why people come back to Tom over and over again, and you can feel it, because I think a large reason, that you tune into these programs is because you can tell Tom cares. You can tell that Tom is not phoning this in. You can tell, as busy as Tom is, he puts the other stuff out of his mind and he's focused on you. I'm talking to our members right now when he's doing these programs and so forth. And his clients feel that same way. And that is so important. So, if they came in and even for a moment felt like, oh, well, all right, I'm working with a businessman, I'm working with a business person now, you would lose all of that. And it doesn't mean being unprofessional. It means being very professional and then setting that aside and being a wonderful personality. Dad, anything you want to add about the importance of a client for life?
Oh my goodness. I don't know how we would have survived without the example Tom gave at the very beginning of this. I mean, where we've had numerous clients who just keep coming back and we keep working with them, and we're not by any means an inexpensive photography business, and yet they love the experience so much, they just, every time they need a photograph for something, they just call us up. We're just like old friends. And that is what has built our business into such a successful photography studio. So just thumbs up to all of this.
You bet. Absolutely. So remember, think about the client loyalty as you're developing the client experience overall, and you'll photograph generations of families. I mean, Tom, like you said, you said 6-figure income, 6-figure investment from this family over the lifetime so far of their family, right?
Yes, and there's been spin-offs. The young lady on the left there, she had friends that came in as, friends of their family as senior portraits. She has little nieces and nephews I photographed, so it's even extended well beyond that. But their wedding was one of the largest weddings I ever photographed in terms of both the investment as well as the size of the wedding. And tons of wedding business came in from that, from their friends who, you know, people are together with people they like and they are like. So they were in my target market as well, every one of them. And as those little children grow, everyone went through the baby program. The little boy on the right there in the family portrait is going to be a high school senior soon. So his mom will be bringing him in, and away we go.
Yep.
So it's great. It's if you take good care of them, it will naturally self-feed itself as long as you work at it.
You bet. And you can see how, you know, okay, 6-figure income.
Yes.
From one family over the course of their life. You know, this wasn't all in 1 year, obviously, but boy, when you consider that a bare minimum of this family being worth $100,000 to his business, but then, like he said, referrals, other people, other family members. I mean, it's much more than that. You can see how if you know the lifetime value of your client, and your lifetime value of a client averages of around the 6 figures, that boy, you can invest a lot of money in marketing to get a new client, right? If a client's worth is somewhere in the lifetime value of $100,000 or so, let's say it's even half that, let's say it's $50,000, how much money can you invest to get that client? It's more than $10, I'll give you a hint, you know? It's as much as you are willing to invest, knowing that the average, and Tom has enough track record to know what his average would be, and I'm not asking you to share that with us here because I didn't ask you to prepare for that, and Tom doesn't like to give numbers that are not 100% accurate. But when you know what your average is and it's that high, you can go, man, I can invest $2,000 to get a new client, to get one new client. I can invest $10,000. I could invest $30,000 to get a new client if I'm willing to wait for the lifetime of that client to give me the dividends of between $50,000 and $100,000. That's just pure business math right there.
Yeah,
So,
and what we're talking here really is what we're beating around the bush with this is that your people skills are easily as important as your photography skills and your business skills. How you respond to people, how you speak to them, how you dress, all of these things that cause them to really like you because you're just so friendly. And that's such, people skills are the lifeblood of a photography studio, because really we're counting on having repeat business. That's what we're counting on.
Yep, for sure. And it's good for the client too, because obviously they wouldn't come back and work with you again if they weren't thrilled with what you had done with them and felt that whatever they invested in what you did, what you delivered far surpassed what the investment was to them.
Yes.
Okay. So let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start, with the marketing. That's the beginning step of client acquisition, isn't it? It's not the only step. So I want to be really clear about that first, is don't think that your marketing is the only step of client acquisition. It's just the first one. I wouldn't even consider it the main one. I mean, if you don't have it, you don't get to do the other steps. But there are other steps that are equally, if not more important. Your telephone skills, the ability to build that rapport, that ability to convert them into coming in and having a design consultation with you, all of that stuff. But let's start with the marketing client acquisition. The first key point of this is to be sure that you use multiple marketing avenues. Don't make the mistake of thinking that you're just going to do one thing and that's going to bring you all the clients that you ever want. Now, when you get good at this, when you've got a track record, when you've been doing this a long enough time, you will have certain things that will be your go-tos. That'll be, you know, your number one. This is my number one marketing. This is where I get 65% of my clients from. And yeah, that'll be your number one, but you don't ever want to rely on having only one type of marketing for multiple reasons, not the least of which is if you only have one marketing leg, obviously you're leaving a lot of money on the table that you could have gotten by using some other marketing that might apply more to other people. But also, if that marketing avenue ever changes, because boy, can we relate over the last 4 or 5 years of how quickly things can change in our world, right? We've been reminded of that. If an algorithm changes, for example, using social media or YouTube marketing or anything like that, if they change the algorithm overnight, your marketing could stop, okay? Then you want to make sure that you got other legs to that marketing table. But another reason it's so important is that some people respond to different marketing better than other marketing. There may be certain people who are your target market that might not be on Facebook. Not very many, but there might be some, or they might not be on social media very often. Or if they are, maybe they just don't respond to stuff on social media quite as frequently. They just kind of scroll through it to see what their family's doing, and they don't stop and pay as much attention to other stuff. Whereas if you sent them a little something in the mail, if you had access to that, or if you sent them an email, if they had responded to something else and had given you their email address, or if they come to your website, something like that, you want to have those multiple avenues. Connect, but whichever avenue you're using, make sure you're connecting on an emotional level. Can't stress this enough either, okay? No matter what technology you're using, it does not change the way your messages should be coming across. They should always be coming across on an emotional level. Don't talk about, with a few exceptions, don't talk about packages, prices, sizes, all of that stuff, okay? Tom does that, but only after he doesn't talk sizes generally, but he will talk sometimes, offers. He might give a dollar amount or something like that, but it's always after he's built the emotional connection with them first in that particular marketing message. That's what's so important to remember. Always start with the emotional connection, because that's why people are gonna not only hire you, but why they're thinking of having photographs created in the first place. There's nothing logical about it, really. There really isn't. It's all an emotional decision, unless you're getting a driver's license photograph or a passport photograph done, right? And they're not going to hire you to do that. They don't need to. Okay. Ask questions. So this is a great one. In your marketing, whatever medium you're using, don't be afraid to ask questions in that one-way communication. Questions that prompt them to pick up the telephone and call you, or at the very least, email you or text you. Now, I say at least, that's way down the list. We want them to pick up the phone. That is always our best option. It's always the best thing in the long run. But if they're not quite ready to do that, we want them to at least reach out to us somehow in whatever way is most comfortable to them at that point in their journey. And that means asking questions is important. You might think, well, I can't ask them a question because I can't hear how they respond. This is marketing. I'm not on the phone with them. I'm not talking to them. I'm not emailing or texting them yet. But that doesn't mean you can't ask questions, like asking the magic question, which you can sometimes use in your marketing. If you were to have a family portrait created, what do you feel would be the most important thing about that portrait to you? Now, that's a variation of the magic question. If you don't mind me asking, what's most important to you about blank? And then you fill in the blank. And even though they can't answer that directly to you, it gets them to answer it to themselves. That's why we like asking questions in our marketing, because it's less about them having that conversation with you as much as it is about them having the conversation with themselves, which then endears them to wanting to talk to you because you just got them to think about something they had not thought about yet. Now, also getting famous in your community. It's easier than you might think, by the way. You might think, get famous, that's going to take me decades to do. And it really doesn't. If you do certain things very well, very early on, you can get very famous in your area. And gentlemen, I'm going to turn it over to both of you to talk about any of these points and add to them that you want. And Dad, I would love for you to talk about that one for a moment, about how long you felt it took you to become quote unquote famous in your community and kind of what that means in just a moment here. And then last but not least is be proactive. You have to be proactive. You can't just think, well, I'll do some marketing someday. I'll do one thing, and then you just don't do another thing for 6 months. No, marketing is as constant an aspect of running your business as opening the door and turning on the lights are each day. Okay, if you don't open the door, turn on the lights, you're not going to get much business done, right? But if same thing with your marketing. So be proactive. You should be working on marketing every single week at the very least. Every week you should be devoting specific time to your marketing. But depending on how you approach it, every day you should be doing some marketing. So Tom, I'll turn it over to you first to comment on any of these points that you want to comment on or add to, and then Dad will turn it to you.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, how many times have you heard someone say, no, I tried marketing, it doesn't work? And if you examine closely, well, what did you do specifically, rather than that generic, it doesn't work. First of all, there were no multiple marketing avenues because we talk often about the legs on the marketing table. If you only use one, like I use Facebook, it doesn't work. Well, Facebook can work extremely well. I know, I use it, but it works in synergy, when things work together. So if people see displays and they hear your name and other things that they hear about you, and then they go, oh yeah, I just saw this on Facebook, and that's when it works better. So you have to work these together. People invest in portraits for emotional reasons, as Todd said. So connecting with that is extremely important. It also lets them know you have a personality and you have a family. You're emotional too, so they'll connect with you. You're not going to be some passionless person that they call and you say, yeah, an 8x10 is this much. Asking those questions, even after if they don't call you right away. I loved what Todd said. They'll have that question in their mind. They'll go, yeah, well, last time, I don't know, I didn't want to do any more family portraits because I didn't look so good when you asked that question. Getting famous in your community, I knew it was working. It took me probably 2 or 3 years to really get rolling using the other marketing methods we talk about. But once I went to the supermarket and handed my little debit card, and the young lady goes, Morelli, that's the place that does the photographs. Now my wife won't even go shopping with me. If I go to the grocery store or anywhere else that has a public setting, she's like, everybody stops you and wants to talk to you and tell you how they want to have more portraits done and how much they like you. She goes, it took us 2 hours to buy milk and bread. So that's really a good thing to do. And being proactive, Chuck and I talk about this a lot. If you have all these self-help books and all the self-help that we offer you and you don't do anything with it, it's not going to work. So, you have that last stop of, okay, you've got the knowledge, now go do it. Chuck?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. The biggest decision one of the biggest mistakes of decisions that I have made, and I can remember when I did it. I was maybe a year into my business, and I was just not happy at all. There wasn't enough clients, I didn't think, at the prices I was charging. I was charging too little, and they were difficult to work with. You just, you know what I mean? Every communication was just kind of difficult, and that's when I made the decision, okay, so I have to have this target market, and a part of the target has to be that they are what I call warm fuzzies. They're warm, fuzzy people. They're friendly, they're smiley, they have good people skills themselves, they are very emotional, right brain dominant. And that's when things, I can't stress this enough because I really don't think that most of our members get it. I just don't think I talk about it enough. I don't think they get it. They just don't understand that you can't be all things to all people. You'll drive yourself nuts. You'll end up divorced and broke and die of a heart attack because you tried to be all things to all people. So I picked who I wanted to work with, and that was warm, fuzzy people. So I want women because 99% of the time, the people who call us are women because that's our target market. And I want them to be emotional. I want, the type of people that cry at movies or cry when they hear a really nice story. And that was one of the single biggest decisions that I made. And the sooner you make that decision and do the things we are recommending, you will attract emotionally dominant people instead of just people that are after the fastest, quickest, cheapest. I don't want to work with those people. So that's part of your market.
Talk about getting famous in your community. So, talk about how long that took you and what that meant to become kind of famous in your community, just very quickly.
Exhibits. Is that quick enough?
How long did it take you?
It took me a little bit to get the courage, okay? So before we even opened our photography business in Grand Rapids, I came from Omaha to Grand Rapids by myself because Sherry was pregnant. So I would travel to Grand Rapids whenever I got the opportunity, and I would go around and try to get some future exhibits of work that I have done so far back in our house in Omaha when we were working out of the basement, and use those to get displays and exhibits around the community. And on my, I didn't know what a lift card was back then, so on my business card, I had Charles J. Lewis Photography. Some things are worth waiting for opening, and I had my opening date. And so immediately, by the time I got to Grand Rapids, we moved, I already was getting some interest, not a lot, but so I knew, and I learned it from Donald Jack. If you got to exhibit your work, you've got to, I don't care if you're afraid, go out there and get it, learn how to present it. Don't just ask them a favor. Can I please exhibit my work? Come on. And
Right.
so I had, that, thank goodness to Donald Jack to teach me that. Because
So how long did it?
I had no money, Todd. I mean, you were
Right,
too
having no money, like how long would you, not how long did it take you kind of to get up the courage to do it, but once you had those exhibits in your community, how long would you say it took you before people were kind of saying, oh man, I see your stuff everywhere. You're famous in this area.
3-4 years maybe.
Okay, there you go. So get out there and do this. And we're going to talk more about exhibits in just a moment here. So,
but the key to this thing is that you build them up. When you get one, you don't just quit with one. You have to get an enormous, for me, it was 12. When I had 12 exhibits, one of which was in a major mall in Grand Rapids, that, Todd, is when I started, the phone really started ringing. And
okay, we'll talk more about that. Yeah, we'll talk more about that in just a second here because exhibits are important. So here are the 4 top marketing avenues. Okay, these are the top 4. And the reason these are at top 4, I'm not putting them in order of importance. Okay, that's not in order of importance because you should be doing all 4 of these. Okay, but exhibits would probably be number 1. Right up there with social media. Those 2 would probably be right up there. But social media, websites, exhibits, and auctions and charities. These are the 4 things for bang for the buck, for, not involving, getting a marketing degree from a college or hiring some expensive advertising firm or something like that. If you're a one-person band or you just have a couple, 1 or 2 people helping you, assisting occasionally, these are the 4 best things to do. Social media has to be, one of the things that you're considering because your target market is on social media. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the specifics of that here because you can go on the Online Vault. We have an exhaustive amount of stuff on the Online Vault about social media marketing because it's the thing that Tom is using the most in his photography business. But Facebook is number 1. Don't waste time with anything else until you master doing the stuff on Facebook. That's where the bulk of your target market is going to be. Website, you've got to have a website of your own. I'm not going to talk about how to do it. Don't need to. There's a program on the Online Vault that walks you through exactly how to do that. If you go to the Online Vault and type the words website design into the search bar, it'll be the first thing as of the recording today of this program. It'll be the first thing that'll come up on the list, website design. And there's a program that we walk you through exactly how to design, lay out, word your website, everything. And we even give you the words so you can copy and paste them into whatever template or system that you're using for your website. Exhibits, my dad just talked about the importance of exhibits throughout your community and not just having one. We're not talking about one, and we're not talking about paid exhibits. We're talking free exhibits. I mean, granted, yes, you have to pay for the photographs. You got to pay for some simple but nice looking frames. They don't have to be super expensive. But you're not paying for the displaying of the portraits because when you do this right, you're going to be expressing to the places that are exhibiting your work what the benefit is to them by having your work exhibited there too. And believe me, make no mistake, there are huge benefits that photographers never think of why exhibiting your work in their venue is going to work out well for them, much better than them just paying you you paying them an amount of money to exhibit there. And then auctions and charities. Mentioning this one because this was a big one for Tom as well, in addition to social media, website exhibits. Auctions and charities are absolutely huge because, again, you're getting in front of people that typically have some discretionary funds. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be attending an auction or a charity. But also, when you do it the right way, you're connecting with them on an emotional level. You're giving them some reasons to respond right now. You're giving them great value, and then you are turning them into a lifetime client. And they usually will invest more with you beyond what they even paid or put into that auction or charity to get your product or service. So, Dad, I'll start with you this time. Anything you want to say about any of those 4 things here, and then we'll turn it over to Tom.
Yeah, Tom is having an enormous amount of success with Facebook. And the first main reason that he's having such a huge amount of success are his exhibits, because we talk about this a lot. We feel so strongly, like Todd has mentioned, there's a synergy, and Tom too, there's a synergy here. And so if you're all over town, you're not all over town, but if you have 5, 6, 7 exhibits in some decent traffic areas in your town, your name recognition starts to happen. And then they see something from you on Facebook and they go, oh yeah, that's that guy that's at such and such a restaurant. I see him every time we go there to eat. Wow, that's the beginning. And his auctions and charities are really big for him. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, Tom, because you are the real master here.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. I do have an advantage. Some people ask me, how can you make a great living in an area of Brewer, Maine with 9,000 to 10,000 people, and Bangor, which is maybe 40 and counting the periphery? And I'm like, the easy part is I could just keep turning left and right and tell people about and spread the word one at a time. But I don't recommend that. That would take time. So exhibits, really, this was the first and most important thing I think I learned from Chuck Lewis many years ago. Have done them all my career, 40 years now. And nobody else was doing it. There was one other photographer who was retiring, and she was very successful, and she was doing it, but she took hers down. So I went into movie theaters, malls, back when some of them are less busy now, but back in the heyday in the 80s and 90s, 2000s, they still works. And it was magic. People were calling me right away saying, oh, I saw this work. Are those paintings? You get all those questions. It was great, of course, with lift cards, and you can go into that on the online vault, how to do all that. It took some guts. Don't be afraid. Walk into that business, patronize that restaurant, that children's clothing store, that hair and nail salon, any place the target market is viewing and seeing, and you'll be amazed. Even if you start with 1 or 2, it self-feeds. You get that confidence, and then when people see your website listed on your lift cards, also that they see your social media presence, in our case Facebook and Instagram, kind of hooked together. They all do work together, because you want them to connect that, like, this person must be good, they're everywhere. It's like an endorsement, but it's other people endorsing you. On auctions and charities, huge. The thing I like about those is you can get date specific. If you've got a slow, I call a squishy time in your calendar, January through March or April here in Maine, it's mud season. There's not a lot going on post-Christmas. First quarter of the year is always slower. So if you have some big auction in the fall, where a lot of them are in the later summer and fall, or around Christmas, and say, this is good for January, February, and March of the following year, and you call them and set up those times, you're doing sessions in a time that normally you wouldn't be. So that gives you an opportunity to kind of fill your book up, and of course you get known as a good quality business that gives back to the community. It's
Right.
just a win-win for everybody.
So Tom, how does this impact the lifetime value of a client? Why is the 4 marketing avenues, how is this important not only for acquisition, but loyalty and retention as well?
Well, people will continue to follow you if once they have liked or followed any of your social media. First and foremost, that's probably the most prevalent, although they see your exhibits and displays change as well. It keeps you front of mind, even if you're not working with your VIP list as much as you should. Your VIPs can still see and experience, oh, you're still there. I run into people that go, I wasn't sure you're still around. You've been doing this a long time, but I just was out and saw this, and this. Glad to see you're still going there. So it gets that presence in front of mind. It's kind of more institutional, which is very expensive marketing. We don't normally recommend, but the institutional kind of keeps you out there just so that they know you're still going. And then when you make an offer or they see an offer, they will take you up on it, because you are still cranking away and doing great work.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. And Dad, I assume we don't have any questions or comments coming in. I'll keep moving forward. If we do, please stop me if it's applying to what we're talking about there, and we'll get that answered.
Yep.
Next up, client loyalty and retention and referrals. So let's talk a little bit about that. Again, the retention, after you've now had them photographed by you, you've built that rapport, that relationship and everything. How do we do what Tom has been talking about, getting that lifetime value of the client to be multi-generational, multi tens of thousands of dollars over the course of the lifetime of that client?
Yeah, and just because you happen to, I just want to read this from Bob. It's a really, he says, I'd like to reinforce this by working with several generations, beginning with families and then their children's senior portraits to the weddings and their families. And it goes on and on. Of course, I've been in business for 35 plus years, but what he doesn't say is, and probably one of the major reasons that I've been in business for the 35 plus years, is people keep coming back to him. You know, he does a good job. He's fantastic. Not only a great photographer, but a great personality. His people skills are excellent. People like him. And that's what's so important here, that we're trying to convince you, because you say, well, I don't want to wait 35 years. You don't have to. Because as soon as you start this program and you're consistent with it, with working on your people skills and having them talk about you and tell all their friends and then getting exhibits, holy smokes, it all just starts to work together and things just take off.
All right, and I see a question from Shirley. I'm going to go ahead and ask that one for us, for her. She says, do you also speak at any women's organizations about photography? Tom?
Yes, yes, yes.
Absolutely, yes. There are a lot of integrated groups now, like Lions clubs and Rotaries and things, that used to have separate men and women, and they've integrated now. There is a women's business group in our area called Tuesday Forum, and guess which day of the week they meet on? Saturday. No, just kidding. But so that is your target market. Although I go in and there are men there because they are not exclusive, but they advertise themselves as a women's professional networking group. But they always have those rubber chicken luncheons where you go and speak at noontime for 20 minutes, quick, easy programs. We have a lot more about that on the online vault. But yeah, I mean, talk about a successful family group of women who are professional. They have the discretionary income. Normally, a lot of them value what you do, and you get to shake hands and they get to know you. So when you leave, if you leave that warm, fuzzy impression, the warm fuzzies are going to go, I should call this person. Of course, lift cards are left there as well.
Yeah, I really worked the women's clubs when I was first getting going. And it was hard at first because I was nervous about speaking in front of people. Everybody is when they first get started. But boy, that really did help, because now they put a face and a personality with the business, and you get calls and you get clients.
Excellent. Great question, Shirley. And thank you, Bob, also for your comment. All right, let's talk now about your loyalty and retention and referrals. Tom, talk about your baby plan. So you primarily photograph babies, families, graduating seniors, children, stuff like that. And you're going to talk at least three major ways that you are encouraging this client loyalty, that you're feeding into that through this whole process, starting with your baby plan.
Correct you are, sir. Channeling my Johnny Carson or Ed McMahon. Yeah, the baby plan, as it is about 20 years old, although for my 40 years, I photographed children and babies well before that. But having a real organized, heavily marketed baby plan started 2 decades ago. But it has allowed me then to go through that time period. When it first happened, just a couple of examples, the little baby in the black and white image, a lovely lady came in and said, I went somewhere else. They didn't have a guarantee. I wasn't that happy. I said, well, let me restore your faith. No charge. Let's do this portrait session of this baby. This became a lifetime client. This is the biggest client I've ever had, all because of that little act of kindness, which started the whole loyalty. So being kind and willing to listen to people. Now that's the young lady as she turned into a high school senior, and she's gone on now to a great career. Up at top, the same thing. A young lady came in. The mom was worried about her hair. I never said anything other than positive because she's a sweetheart, but she was real worried, because the mom has this beautiful hair. Well, now, as you can see on the right, the daughter has this beautiful hair. They've stuck with me through the years with family groups and with my baby plan, basically to get them to keep coming back. Once the baby graduates at age 1, I offer them a complimentary family session or portrait session of that child as they turn 2, 3, and 4 for a lifetime. So here's a couple examples. If they called me and they said, hey, I know it's usually, $299 to do an indoor-outdoor deluxe portrait, blah, 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 but you said I'm a baby plan grad. I'm like, you bet, because they'd already invested tens of thousands over the years, and we're going to invest that more as these went on to become senior portrait sales, as well as possible weddings and their own family. So with baby plans, they get a complimentary family session at any time during the baby plan life, that first year. I encourage that. Do it every time if you want. It's a little less on the sales average, but boy, oh boy, it adds on hundreds of dollars with each visit. And then once they graduate, that's when we do the once a year, and it really works out well. And we do have a referral program where if they refer people in, we have little bonuses. That's a little more beyond what we're doing today, but you can pick out children.
We might get to that later a little bit. I'm not sure. I don't remember if we're going to get to that a little bit later. I got a question for you. So talk to me more about what you mean by complimentary family child portrait session. So family or child portrait session. What do they get? What are you offering them there?
You bet. Yeah. Normally, let's say a prospect calls and says, I have a 3-year-old, child I've never had photographed. And normally that creation fee would be $149 or $199, depending on what it was, but if it was a family or a individual child. And occasionally might run a special offer on that for certain people, but and I let people know the value of that. And I'm saying, but instead of that, your child at age 2, 3, 4, and 5, you can come in once a year or with your family, and there's that session fee or creation fee is waived. Now, portraits are still additional. They don't get anything for that other than us knocking ourselves out, as Chuck would say, to do a fantastic job for you. I'll put my heart and soul into this, and we'll have a great time. And then from there, you'll, just as we did with the baby plan, you get to pick the ones you like the best, and we'll have some beautiful portraits made. But they know that creation fee is waived, saves them a couple $100 basically, and they like that, but also it just keeps them coming back. A lot of them go, okay, let's schedule that right now. I mean, right then, as the baby's graduating at age 1 and they're picking up their finished baby panel from the year, they set up the next year's 2-year-old appointment. So it really works well. And then you can see them upcoming, and we, if we know that's coming because our computer keeps track of that, I can say, hey, I just noticed your 2-year-old baby's going to be 2 in about 2 months. Do you want to set up a time to do your complimentary session? Absolutely. I forgot all about it. Let's do it.
Now see how active Tom is being, all right? Proactive. He's not just waiting for them to say they want, if he hasn't heard from them, he's going to remind them. And most of the time they'll say things like he just said, oh yeah, I forgot all about that. Oh yeah, I was meaning to do that, et cetera, et cetera. So it's up to you. Don't just sit back and go, well, they'll come to me. Even if they intended to do it, even if they agree and love what you're saying and are 100% on board, life gets busy and they forget. Okay.
Yep.
So you need to stay active with them. Now, Tom, I'm going to suggest something here that is going to be a little bit controversial. But that just made me think of something as you were talking about that, and you said, which is what we agree with, that you're waiving the creation fee, but it doesn't include any quote unquote free images, because we are not big fans of giving away free photographs. It cheapens your product. However, you did make me just think of something that I thought I would suggest. And depending on how you word it, again, it all comes down to semantics. It all comes down to what the perception is of something that you're doing marketing wise. I could see you doing something where you say, when you let them know that, hey, if you would like, what I'll do is I'll do a family portrait session for your family as a gift. I'll waive the creation fee completely. So I'll do it absolutely no charge of your family as a thank you for having these beautiful portraits created of your baby. And they say, oh, I really like that. That'd be great. I'll get in touch with you and we can set that up. Then I would maybe think about going one step further and saying, I've seen so many families that go 5, 10, 15, 20 years intending to get a family portrait done, and they just don't do it because life gets busy. And then they regret not doing it when their baby was young or when their children were young or whatever. To encourage you to do this now, what I would recommend is let's set up a time tentatively to do that portrait session for you. It's not going to cost you anything, okay? And as a bonus, I will include a complimentary gift from me of an 8x10 of your favorite of the family portraits that create. So even if you don't end up wanting or investing in anything beyond that, you'll have done those portraits and you'll have that beautiful image that you can enjoy for the rest of your life. I've got some openings next month. How does Wednesday evening look to you? Boom, there you go. So again, it's going that next step of getting somebody to take action now, to make the decision to do it now. And notice I'm not being pushy because they're not going to pay anything for any of this, right? But now they know they've gotten used to spending money with us. That's a huge thing. I would not do this with some, obviously we're doing this for our VIPs. They're people who have already been conditioned to invest money with us. What are your gentlemen's feelings on that concept?
Before I lose the thought, and then we'll let Chuck come up off the floor. I do an ancillary that I'm not currently doing because I haven't had to, but during the earlier part of my baby plan, I said for referrals, if you refer a friend in who signs up for the full baby plan and completes it, you will get a complimentary 8x10 from future sessions. So if we set up your 2-year-old, I'll keep that in your paperwork. And if you send in 5 friends, you get the equivalent value of 5 8x10s to invest in portraits, because it was worth it to me, because their 5 baby plan people were worth 10, 12, 14 grand, in the end. So it was always worth it. So I have done that. That's the one exception. I never told Chuck this probably, but I had one exception where I offered a complimentary portrait to that client for referring someone in, and said, this is a $100 value. If you send somebody in, we'll keep track of it the next time you come in. So I could call and say, remember, you got credit here. I've kept track. You got 3 people you sent in. Let's set up your time that you come in and use that. And they always invested more because they bothered to dress up the family or the child.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the only reason that I'm even suggesting this here. And the wording is important. Notice I didn't say I'm going to give you a free portrait. I'm going to give you a gift. It's a gift from me to, there's a difference in perception there, because you're not saying it's free. You're saying that, this would normally be an investment. I'm going to give you this gift as a thank you, or in your case, a referral. I think that's a great route to go as well. Dad, anything very quickly you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would be willing to test that, because there are great ideas that Todd has come up with through my career that when he first suggested it to me, I was not very enthusiastic, and it ended up working extraordinarily well. Once I came around, give myself a couple of days, and I go, that there's a chance that, so you test things and you keep close records, and it's not that hard unless you're doing 1 billion sessions a year. It's not that hard to keep good records and see how it works. And I also, just before you get into the next step, I just want to get to Linda's question, which is really an excellent question. She says, for exhibits, do you provide the high quality frames, etc., the same as you would be selling to clients? I don't think anybody has ever asked that before, Linda. That is a really cool question. And the answer is no. I do not anymore. I mean, when I didn't know any better, I did. The first few years, I would put the photographs on canvas, but nobody really would notice it. I mean, yeah, they looked beautiful. They loved them, but they didn't really know. And, and then we'd put them in a nice frame. But then as you're moving your exhibits around, because we change them every 30 to 40 days, as you're moving them, no matter how careful you are and wrapping them in bubbly and everything, they get damaged. So finally, I just went to inexpensive brass metal frames, which I don't think I have ever helped a client become happily involved with that. We are more into the wooden, nicely made frames. So that's a very good question. You save a lot of money by not putting them on canvas, and you can save a lot of money by using inexpensive frames that still look very nice.
Excellent. Great.
Tom, anything to add to that?
Exactly the same thing. I have used thin line wooden frames as well that were very inexpensive but still look nice, but I've used both because I got that from you. But yeah, you're going to reuse these things. If something gets damaged accidentally, you've got a $40 or $50 cost to replace one rather than $200 or $300 for one of the fancier ones.
Yep.
Excellent. All right, Tom, how about graduating seniors, your client loyalty, retention, referral aspect of that?
You bet. You may not get that client at the baby plan stage. Maybe you met them when they became a high school senior and you start working with their family that way. The same thing, when someone calls as part of an offer in our marketing, or when I'm on the telephone with them as a further enticement, Chuck Lewis's balloon law. And furthermore, you get, I love that balloon law, squeak. And as you're letting this information go, you can add as a bonus and say, right now we're offering a complimentary portrait session. It can be done on the same day as your high school seniors portraits, or some prefer a different day. We waive the creation fee again, and the portraits are additional, but that's done exactly the way we do the baby plan. The only thing I require on that is that I'd like them to do it within the same year. So if the high school senior is coming to me in the fall this year, which they are, they graduate in late May or early June, in this case of 24, we ask that the portrait be done within that year. And I always say before they go off to college, because then you're never going to get them to come back to do this. And they're all emotional about it. And they're like, oh, absolutely, let's do it. So we do that. And then, of course, when we do that family group, we photograph everyone singly. The little boys in the Cub Scout, I photographed him in his senior portraits as well. Those are two brothers. And then the boy on the right in his Eagle Scout uniform has two babies right now, got married, did their wedding, and then have been photographing their children in the baby plan. And so, and people start to realize it, and they will say to me, you got to take your vitamins because that little boy on the right, he's going to graduate in 10 years. I'm like, okay, I'll do some push-ups here. 10 years from now, I'll see what I can do, you know. And so I've done that the entire career. People have said that if you build that relationship. And so with the younger siblings, the little younger siblings that often are photographed with a high school senior, if they're within a few years so that people don't forget, and I keep a tickler file to remind me, I'll say, you graduate in a couple of years? Yeah, I'm going to be a junior in 2. Well, you know, we have a senior model program you'd be perfect for. And I explain what that is so that they're already on board 2 years ahead, that they're committed to me. They go to this high school. They're going to represent us as one of our senior models. They're all excited. And then we do the family again because they've grown up a bit. And if there's any more babies being born by the older one, it's all the tentacles start to reach out naturally. It's just a natural thing to talk to people about. So that complimentary portrait session for the seniors and then asking any younger siblings if they want to be in the model program works great.
Yeah, and you can hear
like,
from
what you said too about, you know, same day or a different day, encouraging them to do it now.
Right.
Potentially. Now, I have an interesting question for you on that. So how many families do you get that say, yeah, let's just do it now at the same time? Because are you preparing them for this before you actually photograph the senior, or are you springing it on them on the day of the session because they wouldn't necessarily be prepared then for clothing and hair and stuff like that?
This is all done at the consultation when they're first deciding to come to us. So we do the client consultation. After we're done with that, they say, yep, you're our senior portrait photographer. And we talk about that. And I say, now, would you like to do the family session the same day or a different day? Sometimes they'll go, you know, you mentioned that. And sometimes the senior will say, well, that day's kind of all about me. You know, I don't want my brothers and sisters hanging around watching me. And, you know, I want to just be me and the dog or whatever. And my mom will be here, but let's do it a different day. So it kind of depends on the high school senior in some ways, but sometimes the parents will say, you know, it's tough for me to get out of work and bring you here. If we're going to take that day off, let's all take it off. Let's do it all at the same time. So I allow both because it encourages. So then we do a full consultation for them right then and there on what to bring, what to wear, what to prepare for, and it works out great. So I don't have a preference. Sometimes it's easier just to do the senior that day and the family the other day, but I'll take what I can get because it works out great in either case.
Fantastic. All right. Linda had a follow-up question about the exhibits. Linda, if it's good with you, we're going to hold that until the end, but I encourage everyone to stay on because it's a good one. She asks about what sizes we usually use for exhibits. We're going to answer that during our Q&A section at the end here. I want to move on a little bit on the client loyalty and retention stuff here, but that's a great question, Linda, and I know other members are going to want to hear the answer to that. So stick on to the end for the answer to that question, and keep those questions coming. Those of you that are on here live, love getting those questions in. All right, let's move on now to...
Oh, Todd, could you back up, please? Okay, thank you. Because that little thing at the bottom, younger siblings, question mark, that little innocent looking sentence there, or I guess it's not a sentence, is enormous. I cannot tell you what that does for your average high school senior sales.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my heavens, Tom and I have been ranting and raving about this for so long, and I didn't want it to go away without mentioning it to you. So I'll just take a second here. What you do when you're having your consultation, your pre-portrait design chat, whatever you want to call it, we call it a chat. I always get the names and ages of the other children, the other siblings. And then I just bring up, you know what? Now, How long has it been since you had a photograph of all your children together? Oh, I don't think I ever have done that actually. Really? Do you have anything coming up, in the relatively near future, like a birthday, your husband's birthday, or of course I make sure they're married. I'm diplomatic about all this, but after we've chatted, you've got a feel for it all. Um, can you get the other kids to come too, and we'll do a couple of all of them together, and you can give it to your husband as a surprise anniversary gift. How exciting is that? How does that sound to you? Trial close, be quiet. Right, Tom? Right, Tom? Are you there?
Sorry about that. I have a squeaky chair, so I just muted and turned. I'm back.
That's okay, but isn't this just an incredible way to get it's quite easy to double your average senior sale by doing that.
And the surprise element is another emotional reason that they would come to you, because
Yes.
they love their dad. Their dad has worked all these years along with mom to get the child or children to this point in their life. What better tribute to him than to give him this portrait? And you want to see a man who normally does not call our studios. Usually it's the moms or females who set things up. You want to see a guy cry. And I've said this, you want to see your husband cry for a good reason? Present this to him on Father's Day or his birthday or Christmas, whatever is applicable. And it'll be something he's never been able to buy for himself, and he wouldn't think to. So this is a fantastic, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Chuck. That passed my mind. I've used that many times. I got that from you. The surprise element is just a great thing to talk about.
Yes,
Now,
it is. And warm
again,
fuzzies love surprises.
Notice again here, the key is proactive. I can't stress this enough. Photographers think that I should be able to just take photographs and people will just come to me and hire me because I'm good. That does not happen. It does not happen. I don't care how great your work is. That does not happen. The only way you get clients in, the only way you increase those average sales, the only way you increase the lifetime value of a client is by doing the stuff that we're talking about today. And every single successful portrait and wedding photographer over the course of history has had to do these things. But they're wonderful because, again, it's all extra value to the client. It's not just about you getting more money. Look at the incredible value you're providing. So if you're not taking these steps, you've got to do it. So I want to ask those of you on here live, type into the questions box and let us know, have you had what I like to call an aha moment during this program yet? A thing where you go, aha, now that's good. That's something I've not been doing, or that's something I used to do and stopped doing, or that's something I'm going to start doing. Have you had an aha moment yet? Because we've given you a bunch of them already that I'm willing to bet that you're not doing all of these things. Okay, so type into the question. You don't have to tell us which one if you don't want to, but share with us. Have you had an aha moment? And if you want to share what that aha moment is, let us know in the questions box. All right, now on to family photography. Can't talk about photography, portrait photography, and not talk about families. What is your client loyalty and retention referral type of a system when you're working with a family, Tom?
Well, of course, you always take the assumptive attitude. I always talk to the mom and dad, boy, your family has grown so much since the last time I saw you. Many of these children that you see here, this is two families about 5 years apart. And now one is coming in for senior portraits this fall, the little girl in the middle on the right portrait that's got her chin on the doggy. And look at all those other three little girls who are going to need more portraits with their sister and senior portraits. So we talk about that all the time and they laugh. Oh yeah, we're going to owe you a lot. Things, you become friends with them and you don't talk in a mercenary way, but just, relate to them. But the stay in contact with them, VIP list, emails. I always ask people, hey, I get you on my email list. Okay, I'll let you know we're going to be running family specials for our VIPs that other people might not get. Is okay if I contact you when we do those? Absolutely, they love that. Of course, they see your Facebook presence all the time. We have permission to post these photographs, which we have done before, which they tag and share with all their friends. That also spreads the word and gets new clients with referrals. They'll work with you over time. You also can have, when this is on the online vault, so I won't go too much into this, but Chuck taught me many great rewards programs on rewarding folks for sending in other people, referring other people in. There are pre-made letters that you can have that people can physically send and mail that we do to friends. I remember this idea came from me from the insurance industry many years ago when I first bought life insurance as a young man. And he said, do you have 5 friends that might want to talk to me and benefit from this? And this is kind of the same thing, but it's a whole lot less salesy because they're not being forced into it. They're like, oh gosh, yeah, I'd love to tell my friends about this. They love your work, rather than selling them life insurance, which everybody needs, but it's a little less exciting. And so the referral program gave bonus gifts, and it was flowers and gift certificates to restaurants and tickets to the opera, or tickets to the symphony, or tickets to a local theater and so forth. So there's all kinds of ways you can reward people for sending other people in and have certain bonus levels. If 3 families book with us, you've achieved this level, and within this time period, this is what you'll get. So lots of ways to reward people, and those are on the online vault, but just keeping in contact through email or your VIP lists is vital, because life gets busy and they forget, but pretty soon they have a dominant buying motive, like someone's graduating, or maybe a grandparent if they're in them aren't well. So, being there for them is really important.
Excellent, Tom. And also, both Shirley and Bob responded to Todd's question. Shirley says, these are all great reminders. I can't wait to listen to this again on the vault. Right on, Shirley. And once isn't enough. You can't write quite fast enough, and you forget some of the things. That's why it's so wonderful to have this on the vault when it's done. And then Bob says, yes, I believe in adding siblings for sure. Did one with 2 siblings, and mom invested in a 30 by 40 of that portrait. Right on, Bob. Right on.
Nice. Yes. Thank you, Shirley and Bob, for commenting on that. And what this comes down to now, here's something I wasn't planning on talking about. I'm watching the time because I know we still got a few things to cover, but something just occurred to me that we haven't talked about. Tom, how do you remember to do all these things? So, amidst creating the portraits, I'm talking like during the session, even during the sales presentation, all of that, you're talking about during this, I do this, and during this. How do you get to the point where you remember to do these things without having to pull out a smartphone and pull up your list of stuff? Because that's the last thing we want to do, is ever disconnect from them. Is it just a matter of you've done it for so long that you've gotten into the habit? And if that's the case, how did you remember to do it in the first place? Because I'm willing to bet that most people will see this, they'll go, that is a great idea. And then you get busy doing the portrait session or the sales presentation or whatever it is, and then they leave and you go, dang it, I forgot to do that thing that could have resulted in a much better sale.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. Part of it is practice. The more you do it, the more it becomes natural as just part of the conversation. But there's been times when I've literally, honestly, you're always honest. I've gone out to the parking lot after saying goodbye to someone, and they're getting in their car to leave, and I'm like, oh, they roll down the window, and I lean in not too far in their face, and I say, I forgot to tell you. I want to mention that, you can make, I think, Chuck, you call this the doorknob close, where you open the doorknob and then you go, oh, one other thing. Well, this is sort of a corollary of that, where I'm going, I forgot to mention that you do get a complimentary family session, whatever the thing is, I forgot. After a while, though, it just becomes part of the natural, conversation, because I've done it so many thousands of times. Yes, we have a, appointment scheduler and tickler file where on this date, I got to make sure to call these people and remind them that we do this. So I will go right back in and put that in, if not in front of them, after they leave. Usually I try not to work on the computer while they're here. I want to talk face to face, but just make it part of the natural conversation. Say, did I tell you about this? Oh my gosh, I forgot. I got so excited about what we're doing. Let me remind you that. And after a while, if you rehearse, you don't have to rehearse it, but just make sure you do it. And after a while, that habit, after 6 weeks or so, it just becomes part of your habit.
Right on.
That's so good. And I also am not opposed to, you do make a list of the things to remember to do, and then you just make sure to check it at a moment when you're not with them. They stepped off to use the restroom a second or something, then you pull it out. Did I do this? Did I do this? Because as you start to implement new things into your business and into your process, into the system, Don't just take for granted that you're going to remember them. It's okay to make a list. Just try not to check it when you're right in front of them, whether it's on your phone or on a sheet of paper or whatever it is, okay? Because each one of these things that you don't do, each one of these things that slips through the cracks is costing you money, every single client potentially. All right, next up, client loyalty, retention, referrals. Again, we're talking brand awareness now. And what we mean by brand awareness is the idea of doing what's called institutional advertising, or advertising that isn't necessarily directly asking them to take a step right now. It's just for awareness, versus direct response advertising, where we have a call to action. We want them to take the next baby step toward working with us, whatever it is. Both of these things are important. Okay, both of them are important. Now, in my humble opinion, the more important of the two, absolutely with no question, is direct response advertising. That's the more important of the two. Because institutional advertising, if that's all you do, it can take decades for institutional advertising to ever do anything for you, if it ever does by itself. But when you're doing it in conjunction with direct response advertising, the occasional institutional advertising can be great. And I'm calling out a very specific instance here of social media. And I'm going to turn this over to Tom, because we have two different posts up there, and I know they're kind of hard to read, and I apologize for that. But one of them, the one on the left, is not even talking about his professional photography. It's not asking them to do anything. It's not giving them a special offer. It's just building the rapport and the relationship. Whereas the one on the right is also building the relationship, the rapport, the emotion, the connection. But then it's also talking about getting them to take their next step toward working with us. So Tom, do you want to talk about those differences and why you do it, and maybe a little bit about the balance between the two?
Yeah, we've talked before about having a high ratio of human interest and material that people like to read, that's non-controversial, that's uplifting, that makes them smile or think something nice that they can relate to in their own life. A high 4 or 5 ratio to one business offer in your posting. So I look at when I first started, what are people posting? And of course, we've all made fun of, or at least I have in some ways. It's always their food, or their pets, but that's what their lives are cooking, or pets, or their children, or the sunset, or the beautiful flowers that are coming up. Like my lilac bush in about a month will be it's as big as my house. It smells heavenly. So I like to make comments, sort of like people going, well, this is a person. He lives an everyday life just like us. It's not just a business entity that shuts its doors and comes back to life the next day. So giving people, I made a joke about this earlier. I made a post recently. I said, what kind of casserole can you make out of several pounds of, chocolates left over from Easter or something like that? And people responded, and they had some fun with it. And it's a question Todd had referred to earlier. So that's not one mention at all of photography or my business, but people feel like they know you, they respond to you, they add friends, that builds your list of people that are on Facebook that are going to see your posts. And then when you do a direct response advertising, which is where you make a specific offer with all those components that we talk about putting in, from headlines and offers and so forth, they are far more effective, because they go, oh, here's another post from Tom. The other thing that I'll mention real quickly here is that more of those human interest posts are liked and shared. Facebook goes, our algorithm says that people like what you're saying. We'll show it to more people. So it shows up in more places, and then more people share it, and more people comment, and it keeps showing up. So, again, we talk about this 100 times, nothing controversial, nothing that people are going to get upset about or make rude comments on. And if someone does, I don't ever have this happen that I can think of, you can go in and delete that or hide that comment, and or even delete them if it's someone. So keep actively checking that, but it's rare if you build the right clientele.
It is. Yep. And what's so great about this here, again, is that how this works through the whole client experience is not only is this wonderful stuff to bring in new clients because they like what they're seeing, even when it's not talking about specifically your professional photography, it's building that rapport and that emotion. But also now the people with whom you've worked before are being reaffirmed on a day-to-day basis because they become friends with you on Facebook. They've liked your Facebook page, whatever it is, and they're seeing these things come through, and they're just like, gosh, that just reminds me why I love working with Tom. Tom's just such a great guy, And then when it comes time for them to have another portrait created, or they have a friend that says, do you know a photographer? Or they hear a friend say, oh, we're going to have a family portrait created. Who do you think they're going to mention? Who do you think they're going to think of first? Who's at the front of mind? It's always going to be you. All right. So that's why this stuff is so important, that institutional and the brand identity advertising as well. Dad, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, what do you have to sell before you can sell your photography? And the answer is yourself. And that's what Todd and Tom have been talking about right here. Selling yourself, so that, because they have to like you before they're going to invest in any of your products or services.
Absolutely. Yep. Great point. You got to sell yourself first, and you've got to continue to sell yourself.
Yep.
Once you've sold yourself once, the job's not done. The hardest part of the job is done. But if you just let that client go and you don't stay in contact with them, you don't stay in front of mind, you don't stay in front of them in some way, that's going to cool off very quickly. So you want to stay in front of them. You want to keep that relationship going. All right, Tom, let's talk a little bit about referrals here. So I'll turn this over to you and my dad to talk a little bit about that. You've hinted at it a little bit as we've gone anyway, but anything that you want to add about that?
Yeah, as I mentioned, with families having a bonus program or a thank you program, and Chuck really is the father and inventor of this for me. So I'm sure he can go a little more in depth into that, plus what's on the online vault. But the key to this is proactivity. You can't just let someone walk out the door and go, well, I hope they call me someday. You have to give them a reason to call you someday and take advantage of further offers. And with our high school senior model program, for example, we reward those seniors for sending in other people. Now, in that case, it's portrait credit, not free. We don't say free portraits or anything, but every referral that they send us, that someone says, hey, your senior model gave me this card and they said I could get a discount and come in, blah, blah, blah. We reward them for that. So when they go to place their order, I've had students send in 10 people and have hundreds of dollars worth of credit to invest on their portraits, but that meant they sent in $5,000, $10,000 worth of business to us with other high school seniors who also may do the same. So there's lots of ways to set up referral programs, and that senior one is an example. The one we talked about with the baby portraits is another example, and the one with families rewarding them with gifts for sending in other people. There's lots of online vault examples of that, but you have to do these things and be active with that, and don't wait. Do it right away, strike while the iron or the lens is hot, and so that they don't walk away and then 3 weeks later forget and go, well, we'll do that sometime. We want them to act now as well and give them a reason to do that.
Yep, and I'm very much looking forward to the next slide. Therefore, I'm just going to say, go to the online vault, type in the search bar referral, and it'll pull up information on exactly what we do, like Tom was talking about. You'll find it extraordinarily helpful and insightful because it'll save you years of trial and error.
All right, great point. Referrals, referrals, referrals. And that brings us to kind of an overview again of some of the important parts of this, which I like to call the magic touch.
Yep.
What is the magic touch here? And that can mean so many things. The magic touch, the magic aspect of what you do, but also that kind of idea of touch, of staying in touch, of touching someone, of being present. That's what this is really about. So, and we kind of listed some of the major parts of that magic touch. Your guarantee. We're going to talk about each of these quickly here, and I'll let the other two gentlemen kind of talk about which ones they want to talk about. The guarantee, your packaging, how you're packaging and presenting those images to them once they've invested in them. The delivery, if you're doing wall portraiture, we recommend that you deliver it and you hang it for them. You help them display it, so there's no problem. It's a wonderful additional magic touch thing to add to what it is you do, and it keeps you, again, present. It keeps you with them. You're now in their home potentially. You are, you're part of the family. Attention to detail through this whole process, your follow-up procedure, and then consent. Of course, during the photographic session, you and anyone that you're working with, asking consent before you have to fix someone's hair. Don't just go up there and start fussing with their hair. Some people get very touchy about that. So you want to always ask, oh, you've got a hair out of place there. Do you mind if I come up and fix that? Or would you like to do that yourself? Oh yeah, you can do that. Always be sure that you're asking consent through these steps. These are important things, again, because all it takes is one misstep, and now they have a bad opinion of you. They got a bad feeling. It rubbed them the wrong way. Okay?
Yep, it's creepy.
So, it's creepy, right? And
Yep.
you don't ever want to make that happen. So when in doubt, ask consent, and that goes for both sexes, both sides of the conversation. Okay. So Dad, I'll turn it over to you first for any of these that you want to talk about, and then Tom, you can add to that with anything you want to add.
Well, I'll take a couple here, Tom. One of my favorites is attention to detail. I remember one, you have some big things happen throughout your whole life. And there was this one thing that I just remember. It was a big deal to me. It was a wedding and it was the reception, and they were going to cut the cake. And so I'm getting them set up and showing them how to hold the knife and all of this. And then I get back to take the photograph, and a piece of her hair, because she looked down, piece of her hair fell in front of her face. And I just stopped and I went up gently and asked permission and just fixed this one little piece of hair and got it out of the way. Well, meanwhile, everybody in the reception's watching this. Well, not everybody, but most of them. And then I went back and I took the photograph. And the next week I got a phone call from a mom of a bride-to-be, and she said, I was so impressed. I can't believe the work you do, and I loved it when you fixed her hair before you did the photograph. I want to work with you. What do we do next? And these are the things and of course, my wife, Sherry, assists on all of our photography sessions, and she's got an eagle eye. So if I don't catch it, she catches it, and she'll go up and she'll do it. And we always have Mom, let's say a high school senior, we always have Mom there as well. And so we'll ask Mom, would you like to fix his hair right there? There's that little piece right there, and we'll fix a little bit of a fold on the shoulder. People watch you working, and they can tell you love your working. You love what you do. And that's extremely important. You got to show the love instead of just being a professional photographer. No. You're in the people business, not the photography business. So you got to love what you're doing. Attention to detail is really important. And then follow up, we call 2 to 3 days after they have picked up or we have delivered and displayed the portrait in their home for them, and see how they are, and did everybody love them, and do you have any questions, and we want to let you know how much we enjoyed working with you. And then the consent we've already talked about. Tom, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Chuck. The guarantee I've always loved, because the "you must be thrilled" guarantee, not just satisfied.
Yep.
It gives one confidence when you're talking to a prospect, or if someone is at the projection appointment, they're a little concerned perhaps about the investment, or is this going to look right? The fact that you're able to offer them a guarantee that is so powerful, it totally is risk reversal. Nothing on them. And I sometimes will say that. I say, this reverses it. You have nothing to worry about at all. You're going to love these, or you won't pay me, or we'll take more, or we'll fix whatever it is. No way you can lose, because all of them have usually expressed a story. Sometimes if we ask, have you ever had a portrait that you didn't like? Yeah, well, they wouldn't fix it. And I mean, I've gotten clients that way. So having a powerful guarantee when I sit down with someone, it's like just a safety cushion for me to be able to talk proudly about what we do and our fees, because they can't lose. The packaging is extraordinarily important, because if you just hand a paper bag to somebody, or plastic bag, one of those pre-printed ones that says photos on it, like school pictures, nothing against those, they're used for something, but you want more elegant, something that's befitting your business, the fees that you charge. You're going to have the photographs are mounted, they're in packaging that has tissue, boxes, gold bands in our case. They're delivered to the home normally, if that's possible. And like Todd mentioned, people are like, you're actually going to put that up for me? I'm like, yes, I will, if you don't mind. It's a step that nobody else takes. And so the last thing I'll say about that is, and if you're offering digital files, see, you can't do that. You hand them a USB, poof. So that's another good reason not to do that. You can't hang that on the wall, but the portrait being displayed, people take photographs of you doing that and show their friends. They're like, you won't believe this. So it is really good stuff. And those will be my two I touch on for right now.
Yeah, and with the delivery thing, they, what do you think they do with it? They go on social media and they say, Tom Morelli was just here hanging our beautiful family portrait. Here's a photograph of him doing it. That is so going the extra mile. He is such a good guy. He did not have to do that. What you have just received in the last 90 minutes is a PhD degree in how to run a successful photography business. And we never once mentioned camera equipment, f-stops, shutter speeds, ISOs. You know, yes, those are important. Yes, yes, they're important. But we just walked you through how to have a tremendously successful photography business and to do it quickly. But this takes a little effort. In fact, it takes more than a little effort. Of course, you can tell that. So how badly do you want what you say it is you want? All right, let's get a couple more questions. First, Linda's question, which is there a size that you usually use for your exhibits? And when I started out, Linda, I was broke. I didn't have much money at all. Todd needed a new pair of shoes, and I'm worried about how in the world we're going to be able to get those. You know what it's like.
I need a new pair of shoes now.
So. Right on, Todd.
Those are worn out, huh?
Yep, finally.
Worn out, man. It's from pacing. That's what it's.
And so I had to be very careful. So what I started out with was 16 by 20s. I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is true. I believe in getting it in camera. I believe in getting the best result you humanly can in camera, and Todd feel the same exact way. So I would order automated 16 by 20 prints. And then I would order, the first time I did this, I had to get like a dozen frames to put this one exhibit up. And I ordered these real inexpensive, dirt cheap frames from Mexico. They were wood, and I used those for years until they got all bumped up. And then I started going to the brass ones that we were talking about earlier. But I started with 16 by 20s. And then as things got going and money was coming in, I went up to 2024s, 24 by 30s. For the symphony orchestra, I did 30 by 40s and 24 by 30s. You get bigger, but when you're first starting out, if money is a major issue, and it usually is, especially until you get all the pieces in place to start making a real profit, just start with 16 by 20s, that's fine. And then Shirley says, is there anything on the vault that goes into detail on packaging and delivery?
Well, yes, I can answer that if you'd like, Dad, or you can.
No, you go ahead, Todd.
All right, so I'm going to actually share my screen here. Let me see if I can do this easily. If you go to the online vault and you type in the word deliver on the search bar, just type in the word deliver. Delivery might work as well, but I just did deliver. And scroll down to the second thing on the list. The 12 vital tips to showcasing your photography and getting more, is that the one? Yes. Packaging and delivery of the images is part of that program. When you click on that video, it'll take you right to this video here. Welcome to the 12. And on that, you can click right on the packaging for delivery section right there, and it'll take you right to that part. And that's where we talk a little bit more about that. So hopefully that will help you a little bit, Shirley, on kind of how we do our delivery and packaging.
And Bob, thank you, Todd. And Bob asks or says, I've added one step to the guarantee. They get all their money back plus $100 for their time and trouble. Right on, Bob. Todd, you want to mention that? Because we have heard good things about that from people we study with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something we have not needed to do, but I also can see the value of. So I'm a little, I'm of two sides of that coin. Very quickly, because I am watching the time here, but that's such a great comment, Bob. Yes, overall, I like that, and I think you should try it, and I think you should see how it does and compare it to when you don't do it. The only part of that I'm not crazy about is that concept kind of ends with for your time and trouble, which makes it seem like you feel like this is going to be trouble for them having this done. You know, going through this process is, I'm going to pay you for your time and trouble of coming in and having these portraits created. I get exactly where you're coming from, Bob, but everything that we talked about today, as you can see, is talking about how the experience is wonderful. The experience is magical. That's going to be a part of what they're going to take away from this that they're going to love. And so that's the only part of it I don't like, is it gives this impression that this is going to be an imposition for them to have these photographs created rather than a joy.
Todd, if I can hop in here, I did that for years with my baby plan. I put in there, the baby plan, and if you don't absolutely love what we do, you get all your money back. But the way I worded it is I said plus, in my case, I said plus $39 back in addition for the gas it took to drive here. That's just because gas, if they're driving back 3 or 4 times can be, add up a little bit, but I never had anybody take me up on it, fortunately.
Right.
And I do have a stipulation that they had to let me try to fix what they didn't like we'll take additional portraits. It wasn't like they could sign up for the program and go, never mind, but I'll take my $39. They had to work with me on my terms.
Right. And you're not going to get people like that because your marketing and your telephone skills and everything are going to be weeding those people out so very early in the process anyway. Yep. But Bob, I like the way you're thinking, but I also would work on rewording that part about for your time and trouble, and do something like what Tom said, or something just to say, and I will, give you $100 out of my pocket to say thank you for coming in and having this experience with me, or something like that. That's just a joyous way of presenting it rather than a for your time and trouble. Great.
In direct marketing and in business, this is known as a better than risk-free guarantee. Thank you, Bob.
Yep, better than risk-free guarantee. All right, well, with that, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Those of you who are on here live, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your fantastic questions. They were great, and your comments. That adds so much to this as well. Those of you who are watching the recording, continue to come back, watch these, attend these live if you can, because you might come up with a question you might want to ask as well. So whenever you can attend live, we recommend that highly enough. And go back to the online vault on a regular basis. Visit that incredible resource that you have there. I can promise you, if there's a question or a challenge you're dealing with in your photography business, or even in your life in some ways, there's probably an answer to it on that online vault. And remember, if you, for any reason, cannot find what you're looking for on the online vault, I'm trying to figure out how to get back to it. Uh-oh, I lost it already. Oh, well, I would go back to it. But there's a spot right there on the page that I will find it for you. So if even using the search bar, you can't find the answer to the question you're looking for, you just click on that. You'll be able to send me an email, say, Todd, I'm looking for something about this. Can you find it on the vault for me? I will find it for you. And if it's not on there, we will probably take steps to get it on there. That might give us an idea for a program. Hey, we've missed this little section or whatever, but 95% of the time, I can find exactly what somebody's looking for. That's part of what we do here, part of what I do as a member of the teaching side of the online vault. All right, so with that, thanks everyone for attending. Tom and Adam, literally 30 seconds, please, because we're running a little bit over here. But I want to give you an opportunity to say any last minute words. Tom, you go first, and then Dad, you can wrap us up.
Thanks so much. Folks, what you heard here today is one of the reasons I've been in business so long. Part of the beauty of being in your own business, plus the challenges, is freedom. The financial freedom and the freedom to be your own boss. Nothing better. I couldn't do anything else. And today it's 72 degrees suddenly in Maine. I don't have any clients this afternoon. I made it that way after this program. I get to go out, maybe sit and have a lemonade and sit in the sun for a while because I work for myself. And the only reason I can do that is because we have a system in place that's allowed me that freedom and the income that I demand from this business. So stick with us, stick with these programs, and you also, if you're not also experiencing that yet, can have the same thing. Great talking to you today.
Thank you so much, Tom, for being here today. You added so much. And Shirley, thank you for saying this was amazing. Thank you with a bunch of exclamation points. Thank you so much, Shirley, for being here. And what I want to say to you is that I can't remember who I learned or heard this from. It might have been Tony Robbins, but I'm not sure. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. Do you realize that? I'm thinking in terms of the exhibits right now. But Chuck, I'm afraid to go out and go in and meet with people. Well, go to the online vault and we'll show you how you don't ask. You present it in such a way they can't wait to be involved with you. But the bottom line is, if you didn't go out there, the answer is always no. So once you get used to that, it's a fact. So don't be afraid. Jump forward. Take a chance. Go out there, be in the community, get people to know you, use your people skills. It was an honor to have you here, and I'll turn it back to you, Todd.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We will talk to you again on our next members only program. And also don't forget, as a member, you have access to talking with me each month for 20 minutes. If there are spaces available, I make spaces available only for my members where I can do some one-on-one coaching with you, answer some questions for you, deal with a challenge you might be having. Feel free to take advantage of that while those are available. They usually go pretty fast at the beginning of the month, but once you get that link at the beginning of the month, click on that and take advantage of getting to talk with me. I'm happy to help you every step of the way. We'll talk to you on the next program. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.